Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner. Could you first tell me the instrument's condition and why she feels so tired? Ra. I am Ra. This instrument's condition is as previously stated. We cannot infringe upon your free will by discussing the latter query. Questioner. Would it be any greater protection for the instrument if Jim changed his sitting position to the other side of the bed? Ra. I am Ra. No. Questioner. I have a question from Jim and it states, I think that I have penetrated my lifelong mystery of my anger at making mistakes. I think that I have always been aware subconsciously of my ability to master new learning, but my desire to successfully complete my work on Earth has been energized by the Orion Group into irrational and destructive anger when I fail. Could you comment on this observation? Ra. I am Ra. We would suggest that as this entity is aware of its position as a wanderer, it may also consider what pre-incarnative decisions it undertook to make regarding the personal or self-oriented portion of the choosing to be here at this particular time-space. This entity is aware, as stated, that it has great potential, but potential for what? This is the pre-incarnative question. The work of sixth density is to unify wisdom and compassion. This entity abounds in wisdom. The compassionate is desirous of balancing as its antithesis, lack of compassion. In the more conscious being, this expresses or manifests itself as lack of compassion for self. We feel this is the sum of suggested concepts for thought which we may offer at this time without infringement. Questioner. At the end of the second major cycle there were a few 100,000 people incarnate on Earth. There are over 4 billion people incarnate today. Were the over 4 billion people who are incarnate today, were they in the Earth planes, but not incarnate at that time, or did they come in from elsewhere during the last 25,000-year cycle? Ra. I am Ra. There were 3 basic divisions of origin of these entities. Firstly, and primarily, those of the planetary sphere you call Maldek, having become able to take up third density once again, were gradually loosed from self-imposed limitations of form. Secondly, there were those of other third density entrants or neophytes, whose vibratory patterns matched the Terran experiential nexus. These then filtered in through incarnative processes. Thirdly, in the past approximate 200 of your years you have experienced much visiting of the Wanderers. It may be noted that all possible opportunities for incarnation are being taken at this time due to your harvesting process and the opportunities which this offers. Questioner. Just to clarify that, could you tell me approximately how many total mind-body-spirit complexes were transferred to Earth at the beginning of this last 75,000-year period? Ra. I am Ra. The transfer, as you call it, has been gradual. Over 2 billion souls are those of Maldek which have successfully made the transition. Approximately 1.9 billion souls have, from many portions of the creation, entered into this experience at various times. The remainder are those who have experienced the first 2 cycles upon this sphere, or who have come in at some point as wanderers, some wanderers having been in this sphere for many thousands of your years, others having come far more recently. Questioner. I'm trying to understand the 3 spirals of light in the pyramid shape. I would like to question on each. The first spiral, which I think starts below the Queen's Chamber and ends in the Queen's Chamber. Is that correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. The first notion of upward spiraling light is as that of the scoop, the light energy being scooped in through the attraction of the pyramid shape through the bottom or base. Thus the first configuration is a semi-spiral. Questioner. Would this be similar to the vortex you get when you release water from a bathtub? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct, except that in the case of this action the cause is gravitic, whereas in the case of the pyramid the vortex is that of upward spiraling light being attracted by the electromagnetic fields engendered by the shape of the pyramid. Questioner. Then the first spiral after the semi-spiral is the spiral used for study and healing. Relative to the Queen's Chamber position, where does this first spiral begin and end? Ra. I am Ra. The spiral which is used for study and healing begins at or slightly below the Queen's Chamber position depending upon your Earth and cosmic rhythms. It moves through the King's Chamber position in a sharply delineated form and ends at the point whereby the top approximate third of the pyramid may be seen to be intensifying the energy. Questioner. Now, the first spiral is obviously different somehow than the second and third spirals, since they're used for DIFF they have different uses and different properties. The second spiral then starts at the end of the first spiral and goes up, I assume, to the apex of the pyramid. Is that correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is partially correct. The large spiral is drawn into the vortex of the apex of the pyramid. However, some light energy which is of the more intense nature of the red, shall we say, end of the spectrum is spiraled once again, causing an enormous strengthening and focusing of energy which is then of use for building. Questioner. and then the third spiral radiates from the top of the pyramid. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. The third complete spiral does so. This is correct. It is well to reckon with the foundation semi-spiral which supplies the prana for all that may be affected by the three following upward spirals of light. Questioner. Now I am trying to understand what happens in this process too. I'll call the first semi-spiral 0 position, and the other 3 spirals 1, 2, and 3, the first spiral being study and healing. Why does what change takes place in light from the 0 position to the first spiral that makes that first spiral available for healing and study? Ra. I am Ra. The prana scooped in by the pyramid shape gains coherence of energetic direction. The term upward spiraling light is an indication, not of your up and down concept, but an indication of the concept of that which reaches towards the source of love and light. Thus all light or prana is upward spiraling, but its direction, as you understand this term, is unregimented and not useful for work. Questioner. Could I assume then that from all points in space light radiates in our illusion outward in a 360 solid angle, and the scoop shape with the pyramid then creates the coherence to this radiation, as a focusing mechanism? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is precisely correct. Questioner. Then the first spiral has a different factor of cohesion, you might say, and the second. What is the difference between this first and second spiral? Ra. I am Ra. As the light is funneled into what you term the 0 position, it reaches the point of turning. This acts as a compression of the light, multiplying tremendously its coherence and organization. Questioner. Then is the coherence and organization multiplied once more at the start of the second spiral? Is there just a doubling effect, or an increasing effect? Ra. I am Ra. This is difficult to discuss in your language. There is no doubling effect, but a transformation across boundaries of dimension so that light which was working for those using it in space-time configuration becomes light working in what you might consider an interdimensional time-space-space-time configuration. This causes an apparent diffusion and weakness of the spiraling energy. However, in position 2, as you have called it, much work may be done interdimensionally. Questioner. In the Giza pyramid there was no chamber at position 2. Do you ever make use of position 2 by putting a chamber in that position, say on other planets, or in other pyramids? Ra. I am Ra. This position is useful only to those whose abilities are such that they are capable of serving as conductors of this type of focused spiral. One would not wish to attempt to train third-density entities in such disciplines. Questioner. Then the third spiral radiating from the top of the pyramid you say is used for energizing. Can you tell me what you mean by energizing? Ra. I am Ra. The third spiral is extremely full of the positive effects of directed prana, and that which is placed over such a shape will receive shocks energizing the electromagnetic fields. This can be most stimulating in third-density applications of mental and bodily configurations. However, if allowed to be in place over long, such shocks may traumatize the entity. Questioner. Are there any other effects of the pyramid shape, beside the spirals, that we have just discussed? Ra. I am Ra. There are several. However, their uses are limited. The use of the resonating chamber position is one which challenges the ability of an adept to face the self. This is one type of mental test which may be used. It is powerful and quite dangerous. The outer shell of the pyramid shape contains small vortices of light energy which, in the hands of capable crystallized beings, are useful for various subtle workings upon the healing of invisible bodies affecting the physical body. Other of these places are those wherein perfect sleep may be obtained and age reversed. These characteristics are not important. Questioner. What position would be the age reversal position? Ra. I am Ra. Approximately 5 to 10 above and below the Queen's Chamber position in ovoid shapes on each face of the four-sided pyramid extending into the solid shape approximately 1/4 of the way to the Queen's Chamber position. Questioner. In other words, if I went just inside the wall of the pyramid 1/4 of the way, but still remained 3/4 of the way from the center at approximately the level above the base of the Queen's Chamber, I would find that position. Ra. I am Ra. This is approximately so you must picture the double teardrop extending in both the plane of the pyramid face and in half towards the Queen's Chamber extending above and below it. You may see this as the position where the light has been scooped into the spiral and then is expanding again. This position is what you may call a prana vacuum.